Perhaps the greatest danger in love, Jung warned, lies in our inability to see the other as she truly is. From the earliest pages of his writings, Carl Gustav Jung confronted the stark reality that our perceptions of women, especially for men, are often nothing more than projections of our own unconscious fears, desires, and shadows. It is a truth so unsettling that many men never suspect its reach, allowing distorted images of femininity to drive their relationships, distort their emotional lives, and undermine their very sense of self. In this exploration, we will delve into Jung's most challenging insights about the feminine psyche, discovering why understanding these dark truths is not an act of cynicism, but a necessary step toward genuine intimacy and psychological wholeness. Jung first introduced the concept of the anima, the inner feminine aspect of a man's unconscious. Far from a mere curiosity, the anima shapes every man's emotional responses, creative impulses, and relational patterns. When left unexamined, she appears not as a guide but as a specter, a woman who is simultaneously idealized and feared, who draws a man toward ecstatic ecstasies or plunges him into despair. These anima figures often masquerade as real women, drawing men into repetitive dramas of rescue, abandonment, and disillusionment. The dark truth that men must know is this: until you recognize and integrate your anima, you will never relate authentically to any woman, for every partner becomes a surrogate for the images you carry within. Consider the man who falls passionately in love with the ideal of his anima, a brilliant, unattainable figure who embodies absolute understanding and passion. At first, he exalts his partner with poetic devotion, convinced that she completes him. But soon, reality intrudes. She is flawed, she grows distant, and the very traits he once worshipped become sources of betrayal. What he experiences as her coldness or unraveling is often his own failure to face the shadowy layers of his anima, the rage that arises when perfection falters, the fear that genuine intimacy will expose his vulnerabilities. Jung cautioned that this pattern repeats across lifetimes and lifetimes unless arrested by conscious awareness. Jung described a more insidious anima projection, the anima tyrant. This is not the idealized muse, but the dark queen who rules a man's inner world with jealousy, fear, and venomous doubt. Under her sway, he may harbor deep resentment toward all women, suspecting hidden traps and conspiracies in every kind gesture. He might oscillate between contempt and obsession, powerless to establish stable, trusting bonds. This tyrant is born of unintegrated feminine energies, anger, intuition, nurturance, that have been split off and assigned to an external enemy rather than embraced within the psyche. The dark truth here is that a man who vilifies women may, without realizing it, obey the cruelest impulses of his own inner queen. Integration of the Animma requires a journey into the unconscious, a path Jung called individuation. This is not sentimental self-help, but a rigorous process of self-confrontation. A man must learn to listen to the subtle voices of his dreams, where the anima often appears in archetypal guises, a sorceress, a river maiden, a wise crone. By engaging in active imagination, dialoguing with these figures in meditation, writing, or image-making, he begins to discern which of his emotional reactions are genuine responses to his current life and which are echoing whirls of projection. Only when he distinguishes the two can he stop casting his anima onto every real woman he meets. Yet Jung offered a darker warning. The path of anima integration is strewn with peril. The dream images that guide a man may also overwhelm him with fantastical visions, hallucinatory passions, prophetic delusions, destructive archetypal storms. Without careful guidance, a man may mistake these psychic events for external reality, seeking out cult leaders, mystics, or toxic partners who promise transcendence but deliver only further fragmentation. The truly dark truth is that seeking liberation from external bondage by diving blindly into the unconscious can bind a man even more tightly to his inner demons. In practical terms, Jung advised that healthy relating to women begins with self-reflection and boundaries. A man must track his emotional fluctuations. When he feels inexplicably elated or enraged by a woman's presence, he should pause and ask, "Is this her or my anima?" Journaling these encounters, recording his fantasies, disappointments, and sudden mood swings, creates a mirror in which projections can gradually be disentangled. Equally, he must cultivate genuine friendship across genders, experiencing women as collaborators, colleagues and companions, rather than as endless sources of erotic or maternal validation. Ultimately, the mysterious pull of the anima points to a grander purpose: psychological wholeness. Jung believed that only when a man embraces his inner feminine, her creativity, vulnerability, and intuition, can he stand fully in the world as an integrated human being. This does not mean surrendering to desire or worshipping the ideal of womanhood. It means daring to know all parts of one's soul, even those that frighten or shame us. In this brave admission lies true freedom, not the freedom to possess another, but the freedom to meet another as a whole person, unshadowed by our own unconscious dramas. Jung's exploration of the anima does not end with theory. It seeps into every corner of a man's life, coloring his friendships, creativity, and even his relationship with the divine. Consider the artist whose muse flickers between inspiration and torment. When his anima is in shadow, his work becomes obsessed with idealized women, portraits of angelic or demonic figures that obsess him long after the canvas is dry. Each brushstroke is a bid for union with that internal woman, yet the real women in his life feel eclipsed or haunted by the ghosts of his psychic projections. Only when he learns to differentiate the inner images from the living flesh and blood of his wife, sister, or friend can his art open into genuine dialogue rather than a one-sided invocation. In social contexts, the dark anima emerges in the man who finds women either inscrutably seductive or infuriatingly aloof. At a dinner party, he may gravitate toward a certain woman, convinced she understands him, only to recoil in wounded pride when her responses do not mirror his desires. He labels her cold or capricious, casting her as the villain in his internal drama. Yet the deeper truth is that his anima tyrant demands perfection, unyielding devotion, clairvoyant empathy, unwavering passion that no mortal being can sustain. When the inevitable cracks appear, he reacts not with compassion, but with contempt, blaming her for the failure of his fantasy. Jung also described the complex of the mother anima, wherein a man's idealized feminine energy takes on maternal colors. In this pattern, women become providers of unconditional nurture, confidants for every fear, and arbiters of safety. A man trapped by mother anima projections may reject any woman who does not play nursemaid, or he may sabotage relationships by infantilizing himself, seeking psychological crutches rather than mutual growth. He blames his partner for any perceived lack of care, unaware that his inner child remains uncomfortably lodged in a pre-individuated state. For some men, the anima issue intersects with cultural narratives about the femme fatale. He reads fairy tales and noir novels, absorbing the archetype of the beautiful woman whose allure conceals lethal danger. In his dating life, every modern mystery feels tinged with that same fatal promise. He flirts compulsively with women who radiate independence, then reacts to their autonomy as though it were a saber thrust. Here, the dark anima feeds on fear, the terror of being rendered powerless by one's own desire. Jung insisted that no external femme fatale wields that power. It is the man's own unintegrated anima that tyrannizes him with fantasies of entrapment. The remedy, Jung argued, is active engagement with one's unconscious through dream analysis and imaginative dialogue. In a dream journal, a man might record recurring images: a woman beckoning from behind a curtain, a silent figure in a deserted park, a mirror in which his face merges with hers. Rather than dismiss these as random or merely erotic, he treats them as signposts. Who is this woman? What message does she bring? By writing down her words, sketching her form, or speaking aloud in meditation, he begins to negotiate with the unconscious. Over time, the dream woman's edicts lose their tyrannical ring. She transforms from captor to guide. Another powerful technique is creative embodiment. Jung noted that the anima communicates not only in images, but also in gestures, voice, and movement. A man might work with a dance therapist or actor to enact scenes in which he encounters the anima as an embodied partner. He improvises dialogues. She chastises, he pleads, he negotiates. By giving physical form to these exchanges, he externalizes inner conflicts and witnesses their unfolding in real time. What begins as chaotic improvisation gradually yields patterns, moments when he can stand firm and moments when compassion bridges the gap. Beyond the personal, Jung's insights challenge cultural assumptions about gender. Western society often valorizes masculine traits, assertiveness, rationality, control, and marginalizes the feminine. Emotion, intuition, receptivity. Men internalize these binaries, splitting off their anima as a disowned other within. Jung insisted that genuine masculinity emerges only when the anima is integrated, when a man can access his empathy and vulnerability without shame. In practical terms, this means redefining strength to include emotional attunement and creative imagination. The man who can both lead a boardroom meeting and weep at a friend's loss exemplifies the wholeness Jung envisioned. On the level of intimate relationships, this process transforms the very texture of partnership. When two individuals each have taken responsibility for their own anima concepts, they can meet as equals rather than as savior and saved. Conflict shifts from reenactment, "she did not live up to my ideal," to genuine negotiation. "I noticed that when you said X, I felt Y. How can we support each other better?" Such exchanges dissolve the unconscious power plays that once fueled endless cycles of blame and withdrawal. Jung also pointed to the shadow-anima interplay within collective life. He observed that societies project disowned feminine qualities onto entire groups. Women, of course, but also art, spirituality, and nature. When a culture denigrates emotion as irrational, it drives these energies underground where they fester in projections of danger, witch hunts, moral panics, exploitative fantasies. The dark truth Jung revealed is that the more a society rejects its feminine dimension, the more it becomes prey to collective hysteria. Men who ignore their anima contribute to cultural imbalances, reinforcing structures that devalue collaboration, empathy, and ecological harmony. To counteract this, Jung advocated for symbolic rituals that honor the feminine principle. In a corporate setting, this might mean dedicating monthly gatherings to creative brainstorming without performance metrics, spaces where intuition and playfulness guide decisions. In families, it might involve storytelling nights where grandparents share myths and histories, weaving the threads of collective memory. Such rituals re-embody the anima in communal life, healing the split by bringing feminine values into conscious celebration. Crucially, Jung did not envision a retreat into passive receptivity. The integrated man retains his capacity for initiative and action. He simply uses his anima's gifts, emotional intelligence, aesthetic sensibility, relational depth, to inform his choices. A politician who consults his inner feminine might craft policies that balance economic growth with social welfare. An engineer guided by anima insight might design technology that enhances rather than exploits human connection. These examples illustrate how integration multiplies, not diminishes, creative potential. As you reflect on Jung's warnings, ask yourself, when have I seen a woman not as a colleague or friend, but as a symbol of my own needs, either ideal or demonized? Notice patterns of attraction or aversion that seem inexplicable except as echoes of past imaginings. Pay attention to your dreams. Does a mysterious woman guide you through a house, challenge you with riddles, or drift away when you reach for her? Such dreams are invitations to reclaim your anima, to welcome her as a partner in your journey rather than a specter to be controlled or feared. Integration is a lifelong process. At times, the anima may retreat into shadow again, triggered by life transitions, parenthood, career shifts, aging, loss. Each such moment requires renewed confrontation with the unconscious. Yet with each cycle, greater wholeness becomes possible. The man who once could not tolerate a woman's independence learns to celebrate it. The man who once feared his own sensitivity finds strength in compassionate presence. In the end, Jung's dark truth is not a cynical indictment of women, but an urgent call to men to know themselves fully with all their complexities. Only by facing the unknown within, the anima's luminous and shadowy aspects, can a man stand in genuine relationship with others. When that inner work is done, the world of women ceases to be a battlefield of projections and becomes a realm of authentic encounter, mutual growth, and creative synergy.